hello, everybody, and welcome to our draft prediction show. I'm Chris Matthews.
And hi, everybody. I'm Ron Futrell. Over the next half hour or so, we're going to analyze round one picks. We're going to go picks 32 through 21 as projected by CBS Sports. So we have that disclaimer for you right off the top here. These are projections, and oftentimes with drafts, you can find 5 different analysts give you 5 different picks. But we're going to do it. Here we go. Analyzing the first round. We have some special guests with us to help us out, Chris. It's not just us having to do this alone.
That's right. We certainly do. Of course, joining us is for the NFL draft is one of the best-known names in sports betting and numbers, Kenny White. He's been a fixture in Las Vegas now for years in the media and in the sports betting industry. Kenny, it is great to see you here. Also, we have, of course, Jack Doles from WOOD in Grand Rapids. Great to have you along here also, Jack. Kenny, let me start with you as the CEO of Kenny White Sports and puts together really a premier college preview magazine each and every year. Welcome. Now, aside from the virtual world, Kenny, what's eye-popping about this year's draft?
Yeah, thanks for having me today. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is right now the Super Bowl of sports betting. This is going to be an amazing. It's a shame if this would have been held here in Las Vegas. The number of dollars wagered would have been off the charts. But you know what? Still, as I said, with this the major betting option right now, in the U.S., this is going to be one of the most wagered on NFL drafts in history.
Let me ask you also, Kenny, general managers are saying this is one of the deepest drafts ever for wide receivers, at least in a long, long time. Over under on the number of receivers taken in that first round.
Hey, you know, this is amazing because the NFL has gone from a running leg, which they used to run the ball 65% of the time back in the 90s, and it started shifting into the early 2000s to now to the point where it's such a passing league they throw 60% of the time. But from 2000 to 2010, the average number of wide receivers drafted in the first round was 5. But over the last 10 years, the average is only 4. It's gone down. And only one time in the last 10 years has there been more than 5.5 receivers drafted in round 1. And that was just 6 wide receivers. So if you bet the under, you're 9-1 the last 10 years.
Hey, let me ask you, Jack, out there in Grand Rapids, Michigan, you know, a lot was made about the small hand size. Joe Burrow with that small hand. As we get ready to take you through these picks, Jack, what do you think about those small hands?
We're measuring, Chris. We're measuring hands here. Everybody.
I really appreciate you making that the first thing I talk about, small hands on football players. But you know what? Quarterbacks that have small hands typically have issues with fumbles. And, you know, in cold weather, it can become a problem as well, trying to get a good grip on that ball and throwing it. So if that's the only knock against him, I think we've seen some pretty small-hand quarterbacks who've been pretty good. I think Drew Brees is one. If a guy's a really good quarterback, he's going to be a really good quarterback, and they'll teach you how to grip that ball and throw it and take care of it a little bit.
All right, well, let's get a hand on these picks. Here we go. Today we're going to look at the teams on the clock, 32 through 21. The Chiefs start at 32, 49ers at 31. Picks 30 through 26 belong to the Packers, Titans, Ravens, Seahawks, and Dolphins. And rounding out through, 25 to 21, the Vikings, Saints, Patriots, Vikings, again, the Philadelphia Eagles. Hey, Ron, let me ask you, interesting thing when you look at all these teams here and what's going on here, I think it's going to be interesting to see these cornerbacks and how many are taken in this first round.
Quarterbacks. There's a lot of cornerbacks. Oh, cornerbacks. Oh, no, there's a ton of great guys for the secondary that are very versatile, that can play a lot of different positions, strong safety, cornerback play in the slot, and all sorts of stuff. So that will be very interesting to see. I want to know what sportsbook, Kenny, you have behind you, virtual sportsbook you have back there in your green screen behind you in your living room.
Yeah, it's a fictitious sports book. It's a CBS HQ sports book shot.
You made up a good shot of a sports book back there. Looks real. Okay, looks as real as could be. We've got the draft logos behind all of us. So cornerbacks. No, and to answer your question, Chris, there's going to be a ton of them taken early. I also think it's interesting to watch this, especially in the first round and throughout the draft. Miami Dolphins. Talk about a team that needs a rebuild. They've got 14 picks in this draft. 3 of them in the first round, so they're going to be very busy. So as we start with the picks.
Yeah, let's do that. Start with the end of the round one. Of course, Kansas City Chiefs, defending Super Bowl champs, come into the draft looking for a running back. Of course, this is not a deep draft for running backs. I know the offense has been pretty good there at Kansas City, even without Kareem Hunt, who was kicked off the team a couple years ago. But can you imagine a top-notch running back there? And one of the names that's kind of they're focused on now is this Jonathan Taylor. Now, Taylor brings a lot to the table. This is a guy following in the footsteps of many, of course.
Wisconsin. Great Wisconsin running backs over the years.
Day, Melvin Gordon, Monty Ball. He led running backs from 2017 to 2019 with 3,921 yards after contact. Only player with over 6,000 rushing yards in 3 seasons. Everything you hear about this guy, an exemplary person. Could be one of the top players they're taking in that first round. Taylor, strong running back, hard to tackle, scored 50 touchdowns in 3 seasons with Wisconsin. Very durable running back with the Badgers. They're not known for catching a lot of passes out of the backfield, but the Chiefs have enough guys who can catch those passes. Taylor might be the first running back taken off the board. We'll see. Perhaps Kansas City looking at a fine running back right here in Jonathan Taylor. Now, let me ask, Kenny White, what do you think of this Jonathan Taylor running back there for Wisconsin?
Yeah, it is a need for the Kansas City Chiefs, but my feeling is the need is on the defensive side of the football, and it's going to be on a cover corner is what the Chiefs need. I like Jonathan Taylor a lot. I think he's had a great career. My number one running back is J.K. Dobbins, but I don't believe there'll be a running back taken in the first round, and my reasoning is they're starting to realize running backs are a dime a dozen. If you look at the 32 NFL depth charts, first and second string, that's 64 running backs. There are 12 first-rounders in that group. There's also 12 free agents who were never drafted in that group. So there's many free agents as there are first-rounders in the 2 deep. So that's why running backs are dime a dozen. I'll pass and go with a cornerback, and I would love to get Jeff Gladney from TCU in this spot for the 32nd pick.
Yeah, if he's still available, that would be interesting. Jack, what do you think? Okay, you're in Big Ten country, so you've seen a lot of Taylor up in that part of the country with what he could do as a former Wisconsin running back now. What do you think? Your thoughts?
Well, I've seen a lot of Taylor. My son played at Northwestern. He was on the team that played in the Big Ten championship game 2 years ago. Jonathan Taylor's, the biggest knock against him is ball security. He fumbles a lot. Fantastic talent, incredible talent, but he would not be the number one running back on my board. I would go with DeAndre Swift from Georgia or J.K. Dobbins before I would go with Taylor just because of the ball security issues. He fumbled I think I saw him in person 3 times, and he fumbled in 2 of those 3 games against Northwestern. That has been a real problem for him, and I think that is going to be the one knock. He had a great combine, but the ball security, what's the biggest concern when you've got a running back? If he's going to fumble the ball, if he's got a case of that, that's a big issue. I agree. I think this team could use some help on the corners there. Kendall Fuller went to the Redskins, so they need to replace him. They've also, they've got some decent cornerbacks, but they could also use some help on the defensive line. They've got 20 of 22 starters returning with Patrick Mahomes leading the way at quarterback. So the Chiefs are in a great position going into this draft. They can fill a couple of needs there, but I really like the idea. The one thing that has missed since they lost Kareem Hunt, since they got rid of him, if you added one more weapon out of the backfield that could catch a ball and could really be a play breaker there, I think, boy, the Chiefs become even more dangerous. And I wouldn't be shocked if early in the draft, not right away, but early in the draft, they went ahead and picked up a receiver as well.
Nobody other than Chiefs fans want to see that happen. The Chiefs get stronger and better. Certainly they're in good enough shape, Jack. Good points there with the Chiefs. Okay, the other team in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, the 49ers. So they're going to be picking 31st in that opening round. They've been talking a lot about A.J. Epenesa, okay? He followed his dad by playing at Iowa, a very good edge rusher. Imagine the Niners with Nick Bosa on one side. Okay, Nick Bosa on one side, A.J. Epenesa on the other side would be interesting.
Oh, yeah, it certainly would be. Now, his brother's also going to play at Iowa, which is very interesting as well. Tough guy, real deal. Many mock drafts have this guy as a top 5 edge rusher in the draft. And, boy, you can see it all in A.J. right there. He's 6'5", 275, pretty versatile on the defensive line. They could play him at tackle if they really needed alluded to there. He's big, strong, powerful, not as fast as some of the other defensive linemen, but boy, he is one that I think he's kind of a fun-loving guy also. You look around and he's doing some of those TikTok dances on Twitter. Just a great guy. Hey, Jack, what do you see with AJ here?
Well, yeah, very good talent. Another guy that my son had a chance to block when they played Iowa. But I think, you know, and they also need some help there because they got rid of DeForest Buckner. They traded him. The 49ers are a team that only have 6 picks in this entire draft, 2 of those in the first round. So I wouldn't be surprised if they trade out of the first round with this pick here to try and add up some more draft capital. But this is a team that also has some aging cornerbacks with Richard Sherman and guys that are on the final year of contracts. 3 of their starting guys in the secondary are all in the last year of the contracts. So I wouldn't be shocked if they go after A.J. Terrell, defensive back from Clemson, Stefon Diggs from Alabama, Blaylock, defensive lineman from TCU, and maybe Noah Igbinoghene, another cornerback from Auburn. So I think the 49ers will address that need at cornerback before I think they do anything else in this draft.
Hey, Kenny, here's a guy that what's the first thing he's going to buy with all those riches when he gets to the NFL? He said he wanted to buy a truck. Well, he's got himself a 4x4 black truck. So I think this guy has a lot of fun. He loves playing the game. What do you see in AJ?
Well, Iowa is one of the teams that's so fundamentally sound. Kirk Ferentz is really, he knows the game's won in the trenches. His offensive lines every year are outstanding, and his defensive lines are also very good. But Epenesa did not test well at the combine. His 40-yard dash time of 5.04 was one of the lowest for defensive ends, especially for his size, because he's not an overly big defensive end. Also, his bench press, just 17 reps, was well below average. His under and over is 29.5. So he may not be available here for the 49ers, but I expect he will be. And I think he could drop into the second round. 49ers definitely need a defensive lineman. Maybe not an edge rusher, but because of the loss of Buckner, they could use a defensive tackle. They need a wide receiver. They also need offensive line help. They do have an earlier pick in the draft, but this draft is so heavy on wide receivers. I would expect them to go for a defensive lineman with their first pick and a wide receiver with this selection.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting. Let's go to number 30 now. How about this? The Green Bay Packers, they've shown a lot of interest in Ross Blaylock. Packers may be looking for help right there, huh, Ron?
Yeah, on that defensive line. Somebody they may look at, TCU's Ross Blaylock, as you mentioned. Texan Christian, the Horned Frog here. He missed the 2018 season, had torn Achilles then. But he made up for it with a great season last year. Blaylock, 6'3", 290 pounds. Very explosive first step. He had 25 solo tackles last season for the Horned Frogs, 3.5 sacks, so a busy guy there, and pretty good player. What do you guys think? Let's jump it up to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Talk a little bit about the TCU guy. What do you think?
Well, I can tell you, my daughter works for the TCU football team. She's a senior there, and he is a guy that she just really enjoys being around. A guy that's fun-loving, had a great senior year here, and upped his stock in the draft. But I think the Green Bay Packers' biggest need is at wide receiver. You know, they have Devin Funchess in the offseason, but he's been kind of injury prone out of Michigan. They need to get some help outside of Aaron Rodgers needs some help there. Outside of Devontae Adams, name another wide receiver not named Devin Funchess just because I named his name. They used a lot of guys off the practice squad last year, and they still were able to move the ball. But if you can add a weapon, somebody like Denzel Mims from Baylor, or Jalen Reagor from TCU, or Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State, or T. Higgins from Clemson, I think you're going to have a very happy quarterback. And in Green Bay, that's the one guy you want to be happy more than any other player is Aaron Rodgers.
Jack, I like that your kids have connections with all of these players we're talking about in the draft so far. Okay, that's pretty good. Your daughter, your son. That works.
Probably ends right there.
No, we want to keep it up. That would be great. Okay, the defensive tackle, certainly. You want a guy that's explosive, good balance, great feet, smooth hips, that sort of stuff. What do you think? Kenny White, let's get your thoughts on where Green Bay has, what they're going to do with that 30th pick.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jack, congratulations, on the family, the son, the daughter. How far are we going to go down the family tree that we have connections to everyone in the draft? That's great. Ross Blaylock is right where he should be. His under and over is 32.5, and I expect Blaylock to be a first rounder, but I don't know if it's the Packers, because they do need help on the offensive side. Their defense was ever improving last year. It did get banged up a little bit late, and the injuries started to set in, and the defense started to give up points. But I think it's a young defense still. They're going to continue to get better. But Jack's right. With Aaron Rodgers, you want to get more weapons for him, or you want to get somebody to block for him. So I think it's going to be a wide receiver. We know how deep the draft is in wide receivers. It could be a tight end or an offensive lineman. But Blaylock would not be a bad pick at this spot. It would still be to fortify the defense. I could go with it, but I'd rather see an offensive weapon.
Kenny, let me ask you, this guy lost 30 pounds from
I just want to throw in
career.
two guys that I think they also need help at linebacker and in the secondary. So they made some good strides on defense last year, but I think that's still kind of one of the issues they need to settle. And they lost Brian Beluga to free agency. So, yes, I think they do need some help in the offensive line. And, if Cesar Ruiz is there from Michigan, might be a guy you see them nab there late in the first round.
Let me ask you, Kenny, or even Jack here, this guy lost 30 pounds going into that combine. I mean, what were his numbers at the combine? Impressive?
We're talking about Blaylock. Yeah, Blaylock's numbers were pretty good. 4.9 40 speed. That's above average. 29-inch vertical is good for his size. The bench press he did not bench, so he didn't want to show off the strength, I guess, or he was worried the lack of strength may get him and knock him in his draft stock. So we'll see. But you know what? Jack mentioned Cesar Ruiz. If he's available at this spot right here, jumping all over me. He's the best center in the draft, and the Packers could definitely use Ruiz in their line.
All right, Tennessee Titans now coming in with the 29th pick of the draft. CBS Sports is projecting Grant Delpit. There are a lot of great defensive backs in this draft, Chris, and he's one of them.
Yeah, he certainly is. I'll tell you, a big guy, 6'3", can cover a lot of ground, a lot of range with this guy. Hey, he won a national championship with LSU, can play strong safety, free safety, slot, cornerback. There are questions about his ability to tackle. He didn't run at the combine, so there are some questions about his speed. But boy, if you kind of need that Swiss Army knife type of guy in the secondary, Delpit might be your guy. Now, Jack, here's a guy as a boyhood dream of his to play at LSU, and you see the pictures of Grant with that LSU helmet on as a little kid. Boy, you come in there and play, and he was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, if you start in the secondary at LSU, it's almost like a ticket to play in the National Football League, right? They have just been churning out great cornerback and safety after great cornerback and safety out there. Delpit, another one. And if the fact we're talking about him in the first round tells you that he was a factor on that national championship team, I like him a lot. This is a team that also lost Jack Conklin on the offensive line. This is a team that I think is positioned to win and win big right now. But it's unfortunately in the AFC where I think you've got the strength of the National Football League with the Chiefs and the Ravens and also the Titans. Those are three great teams going into next year. And we're going to see a drop off with the Patriots. But, they're also talking about maybe picking up a Jadeveon Clowney in free agency here. He's still inexplicably available, so maybe get him to a one-year contract. Don't be surprised if these guys trade as well. John Robinson has traded up 4 times in the last 4 years, somewhere in the first 3 rounds. So if they feel like they can get a better player to put them over the edge, over the top, and make them an absolute contender in the AFC next year, I wouldn't be surprised if Robinson gets aggressive and makes a move to get a player even higher caliber than Delpit.
Okay, Kenny White from his sportsbook living room. What do you think? What do you think of that Tennessee pick at 27 there? DB, where do they go?
That would cash a ticket because his under and over is 34.5. And if you really like Delpit, you could take a flyer on him being the first safety taken at 3 plus 350. But I've got another safety I'll talk about later. We're going to talk about Xavier McKinney later, but I got another safety I'm going to talk about later. I'll save that one for you. I think right now at this point, the Titans, looking at their needs, it is definitely going to be on the defensive line or offensive line. So that's where I think the help's going to be. And we just talked about Ross Blacklock. That's who I think will go with the 29th pick for the Titans. I think they go with Blacklock.
Boy, I'll tell you what, very impressed, though, with Delpit when you think about what he's done this season. He played on that ankle, that sore ankle, ends up being the Thorpe Award winner for Best Defensive Back. Let's go to number 27 now. Baltimore Ravens go with a linebacker, Patrick Queen out of LSU.
What, another LSU guy? We got a bunch of LSU guys going here early. That's what happens when you win it all. A lot of good things you could say about Queen. This guy has crazy quick speed. He can do a lot of great things out there. He's pretty good at dropping back into pass coverage when he has to. He had a remarkable season last year at LSU, won the national championship, of course, 71 unassisted tackles last season. 71, wow, remarkable. Looking forward to seeing what he can do on Sundays. Let's go, Jack, up in Grand Rapids. What are your thoughts with this pick and this player?
Ravens, I think linebackers. I love linebackers in Baltimore, and Queen is one of the guys that I would absolutely see them going after. They could also use a little help at wide receiver. Just to add a little bit more depth there. Brandon Ayuk of Arizona State. If you go back to the linebackers, Kenneth Murray of Oklahoma and Zach Bond of Wisconsin, if those guys are there, they've got a decision to make if they've got all three of those linebackers there. But I think this is a team that's positioned, again, perfectly. Don't have a lot of glaring weaknesses. They've got the most exciting team in the league. Imagine, too, if you added another running back, say a Jonathan Taylor or DeAndre Swift, to that running game, which is already one of the best. They also need a little help on the offensive line. Had a retirement there at guard, so again, if Cesar Ruiz is there, wouldn't be surprised if one Harbaugh took an offensive lineman that played for the other Harbaugh.
All right, certainly one of the youngest players, Kenny, in the draft at 20 years old. Defensive MVP off that national championship game. What impresses you about Patrick?
Yeah, I think it's his football IQ that he is so quick to get to the play, and his speed to cover from sideline to sideline is very, very impressive. His under and over is 23.5. I have Patrick McQueen being drafted before that spot. I think he goes under. The Ravens would love to get him at this spot. Would just make John Harbaugh look good once again. And John Harbaugh, I think, is the best NFL coach, getting more out of his players than any other coach in the NFL. They know how to draft. They know what they're looking for. And they are looking for a linebacker. It's either a linebacker or offensive line help in the first round. So they would love to get McQueen, but I think, as Jack mentioned, Zach Braun from Wisconsin, I think might be the player available at this spot. And I think that's who the Baltimore Ravens may pick up, is Zach Braun.
Okay, interesting, too. Kenny's talking point spreads there and overs and unders on where people are going to be chosen in the draft. There's not much to bet on these days,
well,
unless you like
they're betting on.
Unless you like tennis from Moscow, okay, ping pong, Moscow ping pong, and okay, not my game. But we do have plenty of things to bet on with the draft. We'll go with the Seahawks now, picking 27th in the draft. They need some help in the secondary, as a lot of teams do, Chris.
Yeah, and really this guy, they should be able to find this guy right away. A.J. Terrell, one of the Clemson Tigers. Big guy, 6'1", one of the best cover corners in the nation. Boy, he's faster than a lot of wide receivers in the league. Ran a 4.42, Ron, at 40 yards. Yeah, that was really fast at the combine there. Let's talk about this guy. Now, Kenny, is it possible he goes higher than projected? This guy's pretty good.
Yeah, no, he is outstanding, but there are so many corners, cover corners in this draft. That's, I think, maybe the deepest position in the first round is the cover corners. I said there could be as many as 7 cornerbacks drafted in the first round. That's how deep that is. And Terrell, first round, yes, minus $2, no, plus 150. So, yeah, it looks like he's going to be a first rounder. I haven't seen an under and over on him, but I think he fits right now in this spot. But I'm not sure that's what the Seahawks are looking at. You know, I just said John Harbaugh, one of the best at talent. Pete Carroll is maybe number 2 at judging talent. So you know that he's going to get the best player available. I think it's going to be an edge rusher, though, or an offensive lineman for the Seattle Seahawks at this spot.
Okay, from there we go to the Miami Dolphins. They'll have a very busy draft day, as I mentioned earlier. 14 picks overall, more than any other team. 3 of those in the first round. So the Dolphins' rebuild begins, Chris, with this draft.
Yeah, it really does. It's a big draft for them. They have needs really everywhere on this team. So let's talk about this team right here, and it's Jeff Gladney. Of course, Jeff Gladney is very talented. He's a cornerback with a lot of speed out of TCU. Not a big guy, though, 5'10", but is tenacious. He's coming out as a senior, so a year older than a lot of the other guys in the draft. And I like this guy a lot. Physical, aggressive, a great route anticipation guy. Jack, where do you see this guy going?
Well, he'll be a first-round pick. I'm almost certain of that. Another guy, you mentioned speed. It was a 4.34. He was clocked at TCU at one point. But the Dolphins, they have really done well in free agency. Added Kyle Van Noy from the New England Patriots, added Byron Jones, a cornerback, added defensive lineman Shaq Lawson and Emmanuel Ogba. If they had one more piece there, and with all this draft capital they have, I wouldn't be shocked if they made another move somewhere in this draft. But 3 first-round picks. This pick kind of depends on what they do in those first 2 picks. Obviously they're going to grab a quarterback with that first pick. You would think their needs are quarterback, running back, secondary, and the offensive line. At this point, with DeAndre Swift at running back, and you grab Josh Jones if he's still there, the offensive lineman from Houston, that would be a great pick. Or Ezra Cleveland, Xavier McKinney, and Antoine Winfield from Minnesota, two other secondary players that if they're available at this point, you might be looking at them. But Gladney is a guy who did very well, really shut down CeeDee Lamb against Oklahoma, held him to 2 receptions and 13 yards. That's one of your top, most explosive wide receivers in the country that'll be available in this draft. And Gladney really shut him down when TCU played him last year.
Jack, can we get your daughter at TCU on the line and have her tell us what she thinks too? Is it pretty much going to agree with what you said there?
Happy to join you.
She would agree. Yes, very good quarterback and a guy who's very versatile there in the secondary. So great, another connection there, Jack. We got to throw that one out there. Kenny, where are you at with this pick, with the Dolphins' busy first round, and also what is going on there with Jeff Gladney?
Yeah, if you're a Dolphin fan, this is gonna be a fun draft for you with as many picks as they have, especially those first rounders, and hopefully they're gonna get either Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa with the first pick, so they'll have the quarterback settled. They also need offensive line help and running back help in Miami, but you know what? This is a defense that ranked 28th in the NFL, allowing 6.2 yards a play. I think they need more help on the defensive front. So I think that's where they end up going with this pick, a defensive lineman. We've talked about several here at this spot. So it's going to be very interesting. With 3 picks, hard to tell. Jeff Gladney would be a nice pick. He would be a good pick for this team, a good cover corner. He's got the size, the strength, and the speed. The numbers, though, say first round pick. No, minus 160 is a favorite to go in the second round.
All right.
All right, the Minnesota Vikings now pick 25th. They have definite needs in the secondary. Stefon Diggs, his brother Stefon, wide receiver in the NFL. They must have had some wild pass coverage games as kids there. Hey, big, 6'1", has the speed, size, strength to hang with those NFL wideouts. He played at Alabama, Ron, all these big schools, yes. So he knows what it's like to play in the big time. Started 2 years for the Tide. This guy really, I mean, when you think of this guy right here, Stefon Diggs, Kenny, is he falling on some of the boards? Do you see him falling a little bit? Because it seems like some of the mocks you see out there, it looks like he may be falling just a bit.
Yeah, he is falling right now to be drafted in the first round. The no is a big favorite, minus 175. As I mentioned, the corner draft is so deep. He still could go in the first round, though. I think there's some value there, plus $1.35 to look at him. And the Vikings, their number one need is at the corner. They need a cover guy. So it's either wide receiver or corner, but the Vikings also pick with the 22nd selection as well, so we're not sure where they're going to go there. But I like Stefon Diggs. Anybody out of Alabama, which we're going to talk about probably 6 or 7 Bama guys in the next 3 days.
Okay, let's head to New Orleans, where the Saints have 5 picks in this year's draft. They have a lot of needs, certainly. Wideout, plus you start thinking about their needs at quarterback eventually to replace Drew Brees. And don't think any of the top quarterbacks will be around this late in the draft. So we've got wide receiver Justin Jefferson out of LSU, staying home sort of, known as a quarterback's best friend, a guy that can run some solid routes. He's also 6'1". A lot of room there to throw to.
Yeah, it certainly is. Now, Jack, when you look at this guy, he was the lowest rated recruit in the 2017 class. He's the third brother to play at LSU. Moved his way up, Jack. What impresses you about this guy?
So if he was their lowest rated recruit, was he like a 4-star? This is what LSU gets. I was very impressed with that guy. He's got the great size. He's got some great hands. He can just play that position. I'll get more on him in a second. I just want to go back to Stefon Diggs for a second. Just real briefly, do you really think the Minnesota Vikings will bring another Diggs into that organization after letting Stefon Diggs go to Buffalo? I don't think they're going to do that. But as far as New Orleans, yeah, if you got a very short window right now with Drew Brees. He's got maybe a year, 2 years left. This is a team that's knocked on that door, gotten just destroyed by horrific calls by referees that has kept them from, 1-2 Super Bowl opportunities. So, yeah, I think they're going to add a little more help. They got Michael Thomas, best receiver in the game. If you add one more weapon on the other side or just a great slot receiver, boy, I think that offense from New Orleans goes from great to one of the all-timers with Kamara and Brees and Thomas. So, yeah, and I don't think it would hurt to add a guy from LSU to a team from New Orleans there. So I would be I'd be all in for Justin Jefferson if he's there for that pick.
Jack, let me ask you, some are comparing this kid here to Greg Jennings up in your part of the woods. You kind of see that comparison a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I had a lot of fun watching Jennings in high school and then at Western Michigan and then in the National Football League. Guy with, he didn't overwhelm you with anything, but he was always in the right place at the right time and did the right thing and made the big play. And it seemed like any time Brett Favre was closing in on another NFL record, it was Jennings that was making that catch. So, I absolutely love Justin Jefferson here if he's there. I just don't know if he's going to be there at this point.
Okay, let's jump into the Patriots now. A lot to talk about with the Patriots trying to trade up, perhaps, to get one of the quarterbacks in the draft, possibly Jordan Love from Utah State. They need to replace that guy that left to Tampa Bay. His name escapes me. Do you remember the guy, Kenny, the guy that left to Tampa? Who's the? Yeah. Anyway, that guy. So if they're not going quarterback somewhere here, if they can't trade up, looking maybe a linebacker, we've got Kenneth Murray. CBS does at least from Oklahoma. He's your prototypical NFL-style linebacker, perhaps the best athlete on the field when he's out there. Explosive to the ball, 6'3", 241. He is a tackling machine out there, Kenneth Murray.
Yeah, really. I mean, this is a guy that started 42 games in 3 years at OU. That tells you something right there, doesn't it, Kenny?
It sure does. Yeah, when you're starting as a freshman, you've got talent, and those are the type of guys that make it in the NFL. And Kenneth Murray, if he's at this spot, yes, the Patriots need a linebacker. They will be all over Kenneth Murray. He is a tackling machine. He's under and over 21.5 to the over. I think this is a good spot for him. But again, without the GOAT, now with the Patriots, their power rating dropped 6 points. I have them an average NFL team. They have to make a move at quarterback, whether it's a trade in this draft to trade up to get Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa, or to make a trade. And the guy that I would love to see him make a trade for, I don't know why they haven't done it yet, is Jameis Winston, because that's who I would bring in, because the Patriots would win more games with Jameis Winston than the Bucs win with Tom Brady.
No, that's it possibly could happen. And who's the backup
line for that one?
You have a line for that? Who's the backup quarterback in New England? Nobody knows. Yes, they need the quarterback.
Didn't they bring Brian Hoyer back?
Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham are the two quarterbacks. Yeah.
Hey, Jack, let me ask you, here's a guy, though. We talk about this player here. He came to school at the age of 17. By his sophomore year, he was already a captain on the team. Boy, that really tells you what this guy's all about. Might be the second best guy next to Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah, I put a lot of value in a captaincy for a player. And if you remember, there was a Michigan State quarterback that now he flamed out in the National Football League, led them to the Big Ten championship in the playoffs, and he was drafted by the Raiders. And the knock against him, and it'll come to me in a minute, the knock against him was he was never elected captain. Can you imagine that, a college quarterback not being a captain? Well, if you're a captain as a sophomore, I know how those votes go. Well, a lot of teams do. I know at Northwestern it was teammates that would vote for the players. And if you're elected as a captain as a sophomore, that tells you that the guys believe in you, the guys are ready to follow you, and that you're more than just a guy in that locker room. You're a great player and a guy that people want to follow. So, yeah, that to me means a lot that a guy is a captain, especially as a sophomore and going forward.
All right, Minnesota Vikings, they are going to be very busy in this first round. They picked twice, very close together in round one. They had the 25th pick that we've talked about already, also the 22nd pick, Chris.
Yeah, there are enough great defensive backs in this draft, and they may take one of these guys. Now, Kristen Fulton out of LSU, another LSU guy, another Tiger here. Some problems in 2017 with the drug test while playing for the Tigers, but it appears that may be behind him. One of the fastest DBs in the draft, ran a 4.46 40 at the combine. Now, this guy excels in man-to-man coverage. Kenny, assess this kid for us. Some have him as high as number 2 among all those corners.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Fulton, best change of direction speed. His 3-cone drill was one of the fastest for any player in the entire combine. That shows he can move different directions as quickly as anyone here. His cover skills are outstanding. He's got really good size for a corner, too. At 6 foot 200, that's a little above average. His speed is what puts him off the charts. He's a definite. If the Vikings are able to get Fulton at this spot, they will be all over him. As I said, it's a deep corner position this year out of the draft. There's 7 guys I think could go in the first round. I've got Fulton number 23. I've got him going at the 20th pick, though.
Okay, Jack, what are your sources down at LSU telling you? I know you've got sources down there, Jack. What are they telling you?
I know. I didn't have any kids go to LSU. That red flag concerns me. He used another player's urine in a test, and that's why he was suspended for 19 months. We just talked about Murray and his ability to be a captain so early on. This is one of those in the opposite end of the direction. I'm a little more concerned when I see a red flag that's that big, somebody that makes a decision like that. Obviously, there was a reason for it. So, yes, incredibly talented, but I'm not sure I'm going to spend a first-round pick on somebody like that, although we've seen some players, 1 or 2 from LSU, that have had those red flags and are having incredible careers in the National Football League right now. So hopefully if you've got a system in place to guide this player, okay, maybe you're ready to make that move. But, Jalen Johnson, Jeff Gladney, Noah Igbenoghen, those are 3 guys at the cornerback position that would all possibly be available at that point. And it's a deep draft, so do you want to make a first-round mistake? That's a gamble. We've seen teams do it. We'll see what happens with Minnesota.
All right. Hey, the Philadelphia Eagles come in with the 21st pick in the draft. We're going to go with Xavier McKinney out of Alabama. This guy can play anywhere in the secondary, listed as a safety, can play cornerback, slot, strong safety, even linebacker. Oh, man, you love the guys like this in your backfield there. What is it about this guy that makes it so impressive? Kenny, let me ask you. Start with this guy, Xavier McKinney.
Yeah, McKinney's got all the tools, and he comes out early as a junior, so he has the above-average size for a safety. He has the above-average speed. He is a playmaker on the field, sideline to sideline. So he's a cover guy that any NFL team would be after. He's the 24th. He's under and over as the 24th pick in the NFL draft, so it would be a nice spot for him to go. But I'm going to give you another guy. I told you I would give you a safety that I'm very, very high on. And that's Jeremy Chin out of Southern Illinois. He's got the best size of any safety. He's got the best speed, the most explosiveness, a 41-inch vertical. He had the most bench presses of any safety. He's got great skills. He was injured as a junior in high school out of Indianapolis, so he wasn't on the big boards, but he definitely could have played at any Big Ten school, especially Ohio State. Jeremy Chin is my first safety drafted. He's not on anybody's board. That's the guy I think goes.
You know, Jack, it's interesting because Xavier was asked which of the two quarterbacks, Tua or Joe Burrow, was the most difficult, and he said Tua. Now, he practiced against Tua, played against Burrow, but I thought that was kind of interesting that he said Tua was the toughest challenge as a quarterback.
Well, when you got a guy that can move in the pocket like he was able to move and escape and run the way he moved before that injury, yeah, I mean, we were all talking last year, the tank for Tua, right? But that injury is just one of those, it's such an unknown that but Burrow had just a ridiculous season last year. Those were Madden-like numbers that we saw him put up for LSU. Completely changed the way people talked about the LSU offense. But I like the chin pick that Kenny was talking about. He's a guy that, you know, those guys. He's gonna be that guy that plays with the ultimate chip on his shoulder because he was playing at Southern Illinois instead of Ohio State or LSU. The numbers he put up combine-wise, and another guy who's played, you know, the full college length, so he's got a ton of experience and time in the film room reading quarterbacks and looking at game film, and I like Chin there a lot.
Okay, Kenny, we're wrapping up the show here, close to the end of it. We've gone through picks 32 through 21, but Kenny, I got to ask you a sportsbook question there with your virtual book there behind you there in your living room. But okay, is there much betting action on this draft? How can people bet on the draft? You got to get your phone out and do it online, don't you? In states where it's legal to do that, you can't go into a sportsbook right now and make that happen. That's a different twist for you guys in the sportsbook industry.
Yeah, true, Ron. Now, right now, the one I know of, William Hill, that you can sign up at any CVS, and it doesn't take very long. It take you 10 minutes. You give them your driver's license. They've got a kiosk at most CVS, and you can get signed up. I believe they have them at 7-Eleven as well. So William Hill, well positioned here. They've got a full menu of betting odds. And yeah, they're going to set records this year of handle and volume, even with the sports books closed. Now, I'm going to say that it's going to be handle and volume all over the entire United States right now. Indiana and New Jersey have been doing very well. DraftKings, their sports books as well with the mobile apps, doing very, very well.
Okay, it'll be different. A lot of things different this year about the draft. But, Jack, your thoughts up there in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with this draft? Into the first round there. Here's one of the things I was thinking of. I looked at the draft order. I saw one guy from the Pac-10. Being a West Coast guy, that disappointed me a little bit. Johnny Herbert, of course, going to out of Oregon. We'll see where he goes. But the Pac-12 and also the Big Ten. The Big Ten has some guys from Ohio State in there. But those two conferences had a rough time over the last few years. In that not as many players as you normally see up there. It's Alabama, LSU, Clemson, those guys.
Yeah, I think you're seeing just Ohio State is almost like an SEC team. What they continue to churn out. Really, look at the top of this draft. The first three players we expect to see taken will all be guys that either are playing at Ohio State or played at Ohio State. And Joe Burrow couldn't crack that starting lineup before he went to LSU. Yeah, the Big Ten, Iowa will always seem to put one or two guys into the draft in the first or second round, and they will again this year with an offensive lineman and Epenesa as well. But, you know, you get a lot of schools there. Michigan goes in these spurts. Harbaugh's had some luck putting guys in there. Michigan State right now is just down talent-wise. Wisconsin always put in you'll see a bunch of steady stream of Wisconsin guys drafted. But the first-round picks, a lot of that talent seems to go to the SEC right now. I don't know if it's just developed better there or you're just getting a different kind of athlete than you do in the Big Ten. You're not going to see a lot of guys go to Big Ten schools in a sense because they don't like the cold weather that you get here in the Midwest. Pac-10's Pac-12 has been down the last couple of years, but I think Herbert will be the second quarterback taken in this draft. He seems to be rising on all the draft boards right now.
Hey, Jack, what's the feeling up there in Grand Rapids with the draft being canceled, now all virtual, picks being made from home, general managers, coaches at their homes, commissioner at their home? Is it must-watch TV this year?
It absolutely is, because what else is there for a sports fan to fill their needs right now, other than maybe the Jordan documentary? And I think the most valuable player in this draft will be which team has the best IT guy. The Lions GM Bob Quinn talked about that quite a bit in his pre-draft press conference on Friday. He said IT guys are going to be incredibly important because you need to make sure that everything's online. They've got second and third, levels of their plan. But if your IT guys got you in place, you'll be in much better shape.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to miss it being here in Las Vegas for sure. That is our show. I'd like to thank Kenny White, Jack Doyles for joining us tonight. Hey, tomorrow we'll do it all over again. Projections 11 through 20. Have a good day, everybody.